The three-point lighting technique is the standard lighting method used in visual media. It is a simple but versatile system which forms the basis of most lighting setups. Once you understand three-point lighting, you are well on your way to understanding all lighting. But before we get into that, there's a few safety things we need to go over. We're dealing with electricity here. Lights are very often raised up on stands to heights above head level. If not properly secured, stands can fall over and strike cast and crew, causing physical damage to equipment, causing head and body injuries, and even burns or cuts from hot lights and broken glass. Always put a sandbag or a large weight on the light stand to keep it from tipping over. The heavier the light on the stand, the heavier the sandbag is that's needed. Whenever you set up a light, there will usually be some unused length of cord. The proper place for this cord is cord at the bottom of the stand. This makes moving the light easier, but also ensures it is not left out as a potential tripping hazard. When handling lighting equipment, it is highly advisable to wear work gloves. Gloves protect your hands from dirt and grime, cuts, pinches, and most importantly, burns. Most lights get very hot after a while, so wearing protective gloves makes it possible to safely adjust lighting at any point during your shoot. The gloves you use should be leather or some other material that will not melt or burn and will protect your hands from the extreme heat. So you've got everything ready to go, you're shooting on location at someone's house and suddenly all the lights turn off. Everyone has a brief panic, someone runs out to the breaker panel, turns the blown breaker on, and 2 minutes later the same thing happens. So what's going on? Someone overloaded the circuit with lights, sound equipment, camera batteries, and so on. Remember that most film and stage lights use a lot more power than regular household appliances. It always happens at some point, but the important thing to know is how to deal with it and try to prevent it from happening again. Most large-scale productions will use generators to prevent running power from the grid and shorting a circuit. However, if this is not an option and you're still using a large amount of lighting, it's important to know the layout of the house. During your location scout, check the breaker panel and map out the power grid of the entire house. On the day, as more lighting and equipment get plugged in, start using extension cords to run power to lights from other areas in the house. This way you're spreading the power load over several circuits instead of overloading just one. Okay, back to three-point lighting.
Then I said to my wife, for justice, we must go to Don Corleone.
Why didn't you go to the police? Why didn't you come to me first?
What do you want of me? Tell me anything, but do what I beg you to do.
What is that? That I cannot do.
I'll give you anything you ask.
We've known each other many years, but this is the first time you ever came to me for counsel, for help. I can't remember the last time that you invited me to your house for a cup of coffee. Even though my wife is godmother to your only child. But let's be frank, you never wanted my friendship. And you were afraid to be in my debt.
I didn't want to get into trouble.
I understand. You found paradise in America. You had a good trade, you made a good living, police protected you, and there were courts of law. But you didn't need a friend like me. But now you come to me and you say, Don Corleone, give me justice. But you don't ask with respect. You don't offer friendship. You don't even think to call me Godfather. Instead, you come into my house on the day my daughter's to be married and you ask me to do murder for money.
I ask you for justice.
That is not justice. Your daughter is still alive.
Let him suffer then, as she suffers. How much shall I pay you?
The goal of three-point lighting is to create the illusion of a three-dimensional subject in a two-dimensional image. While you can create dimension a number of different ways, there's no doubt that using light and shadow is a powerful way to accomplish this, and three-point lighting is the lighting technique most commonly used. Three-point lighting consists of three lights. Key light. This is the main light. It is usually the strongest and sharpest light and has the most influence on the look of the scene. It is placed to one side of the camera and subject so that this side is well lit and the other side is in shadow. This is the secondary light and is placed on the opposite side of the key light. It is used to fill the shadows created by the key. The fill will usually be softer and less bright than the key. To achieve this, you could move the light further away, lower the brightness, or diffuse the light in some way. You might also want to set the fill light to a more flood than the key. The backlight is placed behind the subject and lights it from behind, rather than providing direct lighting like the key and fill. Its purpose is to provide definition and subtle highlights around the subject's outlines. This helps separate the subject from the background and provides a three-dimensional look. Much of the fun of lighting is in taking these methods and experimenting with them. Playing around with the setup to see what works for you and what doesn't is how you develop an understanding of lighting, and it starts here with three-point lighting. For example, what if you want more contrast in your shot? Removing the fill light will give you an edgier look with more shadow on your subject, much like what you'd see in the film noir genre. Removing your key light as well will give you a classic silhouette look, a great way to introduce a mysterious or ominous character into your film. Then keep experimenting with lighting positions, high or low angle lighting, color temperatures, exposures, and so on. Much of this experimentation is what has led to various revelations in cinema. For example, Gordon Willis, one of the greatest cinematographers of all time, introduced the world to a new style of cinematography when he filmed The Godfather. Before Francis Ford Coppola's hugely influential film The Godfather, movies were vastly overlit, but Willis's cinematography was a bold step forward, changing the look of movies forever by utilizing shadows to emphasize certain elements of the frame with light. And why did he choose to go with this type of effect? It was simply a result of a screen test with Marlon Brando.
I called up Brando, whom I didn't know, and had made that contact and said, "Oh, what if I do some makeup tests?" I said, to get around the screen test. And I went and I brought Italian cheese and cigars and stuff. And we were just shooting, and he saw the cheese and went like that, and he started to take his hair and put shoe polish on, and he says, "It's like a bulldog," and puts on, I want to have, and he's doing this right there, and I'm shooting it, and then he started going, he put Kleenex in his mouth, and he had black. It's remarkable to see.
Due to the choice of makeup and shape of Brando's face, Gordon Willis tried to hide certain features in the screen test by lighting him from above with no fill light. The result was deep shadows on Brando's face, completely hiding his eyes in pools of darkness. This shocking, mysterious effect was enough to win the studio over that Brando was the right choice for the role of Vito Corleone, and Willis and Coppola decided that this would be the look for the entire movie. Yes, so much of this experimentation with lighting can be observed just by watching past examples from film and television. However, doing these tests for yourself is a far better way to understand various lighting effects and their limits. Studying the results and learning to replicate them with ease is how we grow as filmmakers. Alright, welcome to our interior spaceship set. So I'm just going to run you through how we've lit this set. Kind of basic three-point lighting setup. We have our key light here shining on the subject while they're sitting here at the desk, which is where most of the action works. Our backlight is actually practical lights from the set itself. And for our fill light, we actually are using a practical prop, the J prop, which is just an LED light on a roller on the roof. Nova can actually interact with and bring it closer and further away. We can play around with the lighting that way as well. So that's our three-point lighting setup. There are certain moments throughout the script where Nova is struggling with her situation that she's in, struggling to deal with elements of her day-to-day life and the fact that she's stuck, stranded on this planet. And the frustration levels build throughout the story. To represent that in our lighting setup, we're using a combination of high-key, low-key lighting, particularly in the fill. There are moments where we just don't have any fill light at all. It creates a more stark, contrasty, kind of noirish setup in the light, a lot more shadow, just representing the internal frustration that Nova's going through. It also helps that our fill light is, story-wise, Nova's sense of calm and, relaxation, in the fact that this is where Drake's face will be showing. And so when we have the fill light in, it creates more of a sense of warmth. There's more light in the room, more light on Nova's face, representing that connection that she has with her. It's really worked out really convenient that way. The truth is, you don't really need 3 separate lights to use 3-point lighting. Here's a common technique that actually requires 0 lights. Go outside in the late afternoon or early morning when the sun is about 45 degrees up in the sky, and place your subject in between your camera and the sun, with the back to the sun. With the sun behind them, they'll have a beautiful glow around their hair and shoulders. This gives the effect of backlight. Now have someone hold a reflector off to the side, out of the frame. Reflect some of the sunlight onto your friend's face. This reflected light acts like a key light to model their face. What about the fill light? Well, nature will do its job. The sunlight will reflect off the grass, off the sidewalk, or even just off the sky and clouds, creating an ambient light that will help fill in the shadows. There you go. You've now created a 3-point lighting setup without having to purchase any lights. That said, if you want full control over the lights indoors, you will probably need to purchase or hire at least one good light to be your key light. Then you can use a reflector for your fill and a separate smaller light such as a torch or even just your phone for the backlight behind your subject.